spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Amazing Spider-Man Classics. My name is John Wilson and we are finishing up our April recordings covering Amazing Spider-Man numbers 7 and 8 today. With me in the conversation are Josh Bertoni, Donovan Grant, and Zach Henderson is our co-host this month from the podcast Teenage Wasteland, an Ultimate Spider-Man podcast that he and I do together. You can find that at teenagewasteland133.libsyn.com or search on iTunes for Teenage Wasteland and Ultimate Spider-Man podcast. And now we rejoin the conversation. Amazing Spider-Man 7 came out September 10th, 1963 with a cover date of December, and Josh, take it away.
All right. We got Spider-Man's on the cover, and he's noticing that the Vulture's looking a bit cocky. He's like, he seems a little sure of himself. Oh, well. So we get a splash page where Spider-Man and the Vulture. Yeah. Well, words.
It's an ancient Japanese art piece here.
Words cannot describe what's going on, but keep in mind that the Vulture's an old man and Spider-Man is still under 18, so what's going on is probably illegal, and not because they're publicly fighting. So let's put it that way. So the Vulture's in jail, and everyone's like, you know what? He's kind of being polite. Let's let him work with these tools. It's not like he's going to build a glider and anything and fly out of. Wait a minute!
Never, ever let supervillains work in the machine shop, especially villains whose MO involved a talent for nicking devices together.
He flies out of jail. So Peter's at school, and the kid from issue 6 with the transistor radio walks by Peter at the right moment and hears about the Vulture. So he excuses himself from playing volleyball, which makes Flash rib on him. You're always running away when we're doing something physical. And Peter thinks about how he'd love to kill Flash once again. So Peter explains to us how his web shooters work in case this is our first issue, as he swings through Forest Hills quietly, saying, well, because of my spider sense, I'm going to make sure that nobody sees me. Which, gosh, if only he would have thought of that before Mary Jane Watson figured out his secret identity, but that's another point.
He was a little preoccupied at that time.
We see another case of Spider-Man ruining a child's credibility with his parents when a kid's like, Mommy, I see Spider-Man. Then, like, quiet you. What would he be doing in Forest Hills?
Which is, I think, the first mention of Spider-Man living in Forest Hills.
That's what I had a note for that, yeah, because I said that we weren't really getting specific locations. We knew that he was in New York in those first stories because of the Fantastic Four, but otherwise, yeah.
I forgot to mention last issue that that was the first time you ever see Spider-Man like doing the webbing down the coin to read a newspaper thing.
Yeah, where he'd like do a coin. But another denied kid, that's another kid who's never going to see another horror movie again. So he's like...
Maybe it's the same kid.
I thought that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Mommy, Daddy, I just saw Spider-Man swinging across the rooftops. You're just imagining things, Bobby. And the panel that got cut out is, how are his therapy sessions going anyway?
Oh, not well.
Not well at all.
His therapist is Dr. Ryan. What was his name? Reinhardt or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Spider-Man's thinking, you know what? I had that magnetic device that stopped the Vulture. I'm just going to use it again. That guy's an idiot. Little does Spider-Man know that the Vulture's made some modifications, so that device isn't actually going to work. But the Vulture sees Spider-Man and pretends that it's going to work, so he plays possum. The Vulture pretends to fall, and Spider-Man's like, yay, I did it. Boom. Vulture flies up, uppercuts Spider-Man to the face, which serves him right because he ignored his spider sense. He's like, my spider sense is tingling. Oh, well, Vulture's falling, so it's not like there's any danger. He's got to be splat on the ground by... Ow!
And this whole double cross is just really cool. It's my second favorite part of the issue.
So the tide's turning, Vulture's kicking Spider-Man's butt, and he drops Spider-Man, and Spider-Man lands on his arm, and the public wonders if Spider-Man's had it, and even the cop's like, I never thought he was that bad. So the Vulture flies away, thinking he killed Spider-Man, and Peter, with a broken arm, goes home, and there's that famous panel where he's avoiding Aunt May because she thinks she hears him up in his room, and he's sticking to the wall. I mean, no, he's sticking to the ceiling with Aunt May right under him, but she can't.
If his arm weren't broken, I would have to question that particular posture.
Well,
oh, God.
They kind of did this in the first Spider-Man movie, except it was Norman Osborn, and there's that whole dramatic blood dropping behind him, making that little sound that Norman hears.
And in that movie, the ceiling was way, way, way higher. So how does she miss him this time? But never mind.
Okay, but who walks into rooms and can't see that? This happens in movies all the time. It's people don't have
vision.
eyes. I know. Come on. I know that she's old. So he eventually runs into Aunt May inside the house. He goes into the front door, and she's like, "Oh, your arm." Oh, I was playing ball. So they go to a doctor. He gets a cast, and he thinks that it's going to be on for a while, maybe even weeks, which we'll talk about that later when we talk about the notes for the issue about the length of when he needs it. And when he gets to school, of course, the gang teases him, and Peter thinks, God, I'd love to kill Flash. Wouldn't that be awesome? So more thoughts about doing bad stuff to Flash.
Yay, homicidal Spider-Man.
The Vulture decides to rob the Daily Bugle for plot reasons. So he can steal their payroll. Let's be honest, it's plot reasons.
It's a plot device.
So Peter's there. He's flirting with Betty, and she's like, so how'd you really break your arm? He's like, I was fighting the Vulture. She's like, okay, fine, whatever. He's like, hey, you asked. He says, let's just stick to the volleyball story, okay?
Exactly.
So
Now, I have to say, that was a pretty big-ass volleyball. I'm not sure if volleyballs have changed over the years, but that volleyball looked like an old-style medicine ball that actually could break your arm if it hit you the wrong way.
What if Aunt May would have sued the school? I mean, she seems like the type of person that would have done it.
Ultimate Flash Thompson's parents did it in Ultimate Spider-Man whenever they were fighting and Peter broke his hand.
Because they were sober in that universe.
Yeah.
Lawyers, internet, modern.
Hypnocoin.
So the Vulture, buy a monkey. The Vulture shows up as Peter's begging for more than $10 for a photo, and I know that there's been inflation since then and everything, but good God, $10 for a photo. He can buy like 100 shoelaces with that. So the Vulture and Jonah are arguing, and Jonah's being a coward and a cheapskate, and Peter's like, all right, I'm just going to change into Spider-Man, and they battle all across the Bugle, including the printing press, and then the battle eventually goes to the sky, and they start to fall, but while they're falling, Peter makes himself stick to the Vulture, so the Vulture's falling too, and he's like, you idiots, which I don't understand why the Vulture just doesn't fly away with both their weight, but whatever. Spider-Man,
he's old. He can't lift that much.
Yeah, but he was just lifting him a few panels earlier.
It was leverage.
And then he webs his wings together. I don't think that it was well enough because he's falling too. So the Vulture's falling and he's webbed up and the police are going to get him. And he's like, well, I'm going to let Jonah thank me now. And apparently Spider-Man issue 1 didn't teach him anything because Jonah's like, look what you did. You're ruining my office. I hate you, Spider-Man. Peter's like, you know what? I'm going to web your mouth. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier.
It's a good thing he left his nostrils open.
Yeah, well, he says, don't worry, it'll melt in an hour, which we think is the first reference to that. And then we get Peter Parker pimpage with really bad dialogue, and within seconds, the Amazing Spider-Man vanishes to be replaced by a sling-wearing, innocent-looking Peter Parker. The worst thing about being Spider-Man is changing clothes a zillion times a day. Oh well, it keeps me out of the pool room. Hi, Betty. What are you doing behind that desk? It's the only safe place, Peter. This office was a madhouse a few minutes ago. Mind if I join you? Be my guest. By the way, where were you? Spider-Man was battling the Vulture. Me? Oh, I was hiding in the closet. I'm afraid I'm just not the heroic type. Neither am I. Maybe that's so much, Peter. At least you don't pretend to be what you're not. J. Jonah Jameson runs by, screaming some what we think are curse words. Look, Mr. Jameson can't talk. I wonder what's wrong with him. Wrong. It's an improvement. Peter, sometimes I get the feeling that you're laughing at a secret little joke that's all your own. If you keep using that cool perfume, Betty, I may break down and tell you about it someday. Oh, Peter Parker, that's the closest thing to a romantic mark I've ever heard you say. Gosh, I can be more romantic than that. Here, rest your head on my shoulder, Blue Eyes, and let's enjoy the silence. But what will Mr. Jameson say? Nothing, baby. For at least an hour. We admit it, this isn't a typical ending for a typical superhero tale, but we've never claimed that Spider-Man was a typical superhero. In fact, next issue, he does some pretty untypical things, but see for yourself when we meet again.
So, did they, get it on the office floor there after this?
That's what it's setting up. It's like, he won't say anything for at least an hour.
And that's long enough to shoot a scene, right?
And an hour's all I need. Oh, Peter. We actually see a continuation of that scene in one of the early issues of Untold Tales of Spider-Man. I want to say it's issue 4. It's a Sandman issue. He asks her out on a date and she says yes. Because they become a couple in the next few issues, but we never actually see the first date. So that's one of the cool things that Untold Tales did. We saw his first date with Betty, and Peter was actually kind of a downer in that date. And he even ditched Betty in the middle of the date saying, "No, there's something I got to do."
He pulled a Deb Whitman on her?
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much. He was a sourpuss puts the whole time. He shows up at her door with flowers, but he has the biggest frown on his face. It's because something happened with Sandman that shook his confidence. But we see the continuation of the scene where he asks her out, and then afterwards he's jumping around. I got a date with Betty Brant. I got a date with Betty Brant. And then he has his cast, and he rips it off his arm, and he's like, I won't be needing this anymore. It's like asking Betty out, just like curing his broken arm that was supposed to be broken for weeks. He's like, well, it would have been so funny. It's like, I won't be needing this anymore. Ah! My love has blinded me.
Well, I have the essential, so I can't. It's all in black and white. Doesn't Betty have brown eyes?
We don't get close enough look
really,
to see her eyes.
I mean, eyes weren't really that detailed back then, and eyes changed all the time.
Shoot, that was one of the things I remembered about the Torment arc in the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Mary Jane's eyes are constantly changing throughout one issue. She's green and then blue and then green, and a letter writer wrote in and said that she was really the chameleon.
Yeah, Untold Tales, like I said, they were really good at filling in these gaps, because I couldn't believe it at the time when it said, we're going to finally show you Peter and Betty's first date. And I was like, no, they must have had that before. There's no way they could have missed that. And I read the old issues, and I'm sure enough they did. So
that's pretty cool, though. I'm glad they filled that gap. It's when you're going to do a flashback series like that, looking for those gaps and finding what stories are still wanting to be told is a pretty good skill. And you can just make up a random Spider-Man story and put the cast of characters from that era, but there's much more payoff if you're finding a story that actually wants to be told and telling that. And the first day between Betty would be one of those, I would think.
Yeah, because the next time we see Betty, it's issue 9, and we get the feeling that they like each other and that they're more than friends, but it's not elaborated much because Betty comes and waits with him in the hospital with Aunt May.
Right.
I mean, Betty, in Ditko's run and in Untold Tales, Betty would always visit Aunt May in the hospital, which is really cool because it's not like Aunt May ever betrayed Betty by, trying to set up Peter with somebody else while he was dating Betty.
So going back to the Forest Hills things, just because I did look some stuff up. Somehow, somewhere, if you Google Peter Parker's address, there is an actual address for him in Forest Hills. I don't know.
Ingram Street.
Yeah, 20 Ingram Street. I don't know where that was ever mentioned or who made it up or if it was comics or where it came from. But I did a Google Maps from that address to, I think it was the corner of 37th and 2nd in Manhattan where the Daily Bugle is supposed to be. That's a 10-mile jaunt. So if he can swing webs at an average of 30 miles an hour, faster than traffic, then that's about a 20-minute commute to get from his house to the Daily Bugle, which, to me is not too shabby and pretty realistic.
No, that's not bad. Okay. I don't know New York that well, so I just assume that like a residential area like Forest Hills and something like the Metropolitan Daily Bugle must have been far away.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's across the water, so there's a definite geographic division between them.
That's how it is in the video games, but I wasn't sure, how accurate the video games were with the distance.
So does the Vulture suit have pockets? Because when he goes to do the holdup, where does he get that gun from? And where does he put the gems?
It's the Vulture. We don't have to explain it.
It's Ditko. We don't have to explain it because he won't.
Well, the Vulture, it's like, how did you get in here?
The same way I shall leave. With your most valuable gems. Just watch me.
It's like, that's not how you came in, though. You did not come in with the valuable gems. You are... No.
That's what I thought when I read it, too.
And then you just want to slap Peter, because when he thinks that the Vulture's defeated, he's like, man, that was too easy. I'm kind of disappointed. It's like, you idiot! Did Dr. Octopus not teach you anything?
Did you not learn from issue 3?
Do you need to get thrown out a window again and get a motivational speech from the Human Torch
who
shows up every other
next
issue?
2 pages, he snaps his arm, so there you go. He had to come.
I don't think a motivational speech from the Human Torch would really help him at this point because of their relationship being what it is. But that is the first serious injury that he's sustained, that they actually, built into the plot and that lasted for a while, not just a minor bump or bruise or whatever.
We're talking about inappropriate art with teenagers and older men. I need to.
Well, we weren't talking about it, but if you want to again, we can.
Earlier in the issue. Okay, so let me direct you to a certain page. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Page 14 of the story, like not page 11 of, which would be page 11 if you're doing it on.
Oh my God!
Bottom panel.
Oh,
for those.
My God!
We have Spider-Man playing butt leapfrog with J. Jonah Jameson. Oh, and he's copying a definite feel on Jonah's butt right there.
Oh, right above it too. Right above it, like Spider-Man trying to shoehorn in on Vulture's actions, so he swats him away. This
Oh.
is terrible. Oh, Lord.
Betty's characterization as a coward gets played up over the years. Like, here she's kind of calm. She's just, like, hiding under her desk. She's like, oh, I'm going to be here while it's safe. When the Scorpion shows up in about 20 issues or so, she has a traumatic nervous breakdown to the point where she needs to miss work.
I think things have, like, gradually worn away at her, like, emotional stability. This is her first encounter with a supervillain, and...
you know, she owes money to the mob and stuff, and her mom's in the hospital. I mean, she's, you know...
You know, in issue 4, they had, like, the battle in the classroom and everything, and this issue 7, they had a battle in the Daily Bugle. And I was, like, thinking, like, well, that's kind of interesting. But then I thought that back in the PlayStation Activision Spider-Man game, where you actually did fight in the basement of the Bugle with all the running, printing...
Oh, God.
I love that scene. I think that's one of the things that makes this story so much stronger than issue 2 is just the scenes of the fighting and everything. Because I remember reading that and watching them, you know, swinging around over those printing presses and what would happen if Spider-Man fell and got into the rollers, and untold numbers of blood-streaked newspaper rolls were going through my head as a kid. It was pretty crazy. Payroll trucks. No such animal exists today. You couldn't tell this story anymore with the Vulture trying to rob the payroll trucks.
So I really like this. I really like this issue because the whole dilemma of having an injury, trying to lie about it, trying to hide from it, and then trying to fight with it is really played up. I think it's as best as it can. I really like the scene where he hides from Aunt May, you know, senseless as it is. Because you've never seen Peter up at this point in that situation. Then it's a lie about it. Then it's to take the ribbing from the kids about it. Then it's to, like, fight with it. You see a lot of, like, about his thought process going along with it, and he kind of deserves, you know, getting the girl at the end because he had to put up with all this crap.
Yeah, the whole living your life with a Spider-Man injury thing is a plot device they'll use a lot more in the future, but this is the first time they're using it, and it's done really, really well.
My favorite is when he had the ulcer when he fought Dr. Octopus, because first of all, I never knew Peter ever had an ulcer, but, like, I thought that Conway dealt with it really well.
I just love how this injury is resolved. Like in Untold Tales, he's like, well, I won't be needing this anymore because Betty said yes.
That reminds me of another Simpsons gag where Reverend's daughter kisses him, and he gets punched by Nelson, and then the Reverend's daughter kisses him, and he's like, you know, wow, the power of your kiss, you know, puts it at full strength, and he stands up, then he falls right back down. He's like, oh, give me a second. He can't get back up because the punch hurt so bad.
Zach, did you have any thoughts on this issue?
Y'all said everything.
Sorry, dude.
Oh, it's fine, man. I'm used to it. I do a podcast with John.
Oh.
I'm kidding, John. I'm kidding.
Has any of you read Spider-Man Noir?
I has not.
I haven't either. I've only read Ultimate Spider-Man pretty much.
They have the Vulture in that story, and I've only read the first issue. In my read-through that I'm doing, I just got to the first issue, and I read it. And they have the Vulture as being, like, a super sharp-toothed cannibal-type old man creature. It's really kind of twisted and weird. It's an interesting reinterpretation of the character.
Oh, you think that's interesting? You think that's interesting?
No.
Take a look at who the current Vulture is. He throws up acid at you and it makes you blind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because you demanded it.
So speaking of...
a kid wrote in, hey, I think that the Vulture's too boring and old. Make him a young guy who throws up on people and growls and has weird teeth.
So speaking of fans demanding, the letters columns in this issue, they did go up through issue 4. One person says, I think Peter Parker should have a girlfriend who sticks up for him when he's being bullied. And I don't mean some chick who's homely, wears specs and a sack dress, with black and white saddle shoes, or is as science-minded as he is. I mean a doll with a good figure, get up and go, who digs jazz and rock and roll. You follow me? And I was just wondering if that was the letter that you remember reading.
Yep, that's the letter I remember reading.
Okay.
You follow me? A doll.
The early genesis of Mary Jane Watson. Could that have planted a seed in Stanley's... I mean, it's not verbatim Mary Jane's character, but you imagine...
What do you mean could? It did.
Well, the Mary Jane development was quite a bit later. I mean, that side of her personality didn't get brought out until she was actually revealed, and that was in the 40s issue count numbers. That's several years later.
She's dressed like a debutante, just like Liz Ellen, you know, when that flower's eating her face in issue 25.
With the little bonnet or scarf over her hair that she will never wear again in her life.
Yeah.
She looks like a screen star.
A screen star of what?
Psycho.
It's like, why is she wearing? You get the feeling that Mary Jane came over for coffee and she's wearing something. It's like, oh my, you're not going to meet Peter in this. So Aunt May drags Mary Jane upstairs and makes her change into all this stuff. And she's like, and your hair, it's so wild and unkempt. Here, put this on. And Mary Jane's sitting there on that couch thinking, this is the most humiliating experience of my life. And then these two girls come over who she has no idea who they are. That like
Another
just
reason
say,
why Aunt May should die.
I'd love to see that scene from Mary Jane's point of view.
So Bob Jennings also wrote in. He actually wrote in to criticize the Ditko art on the Doc Ock story. He thought it was rather poor compared to the first two issues. And I went back and looked at the Doc Ock story, and there are quite a few places where things are kind of...
It's not so hot.
Yeah, it's not so hot. Paul Gambaccini wrote a letter praising Spider-Man, but at the same time really putting down the competition. And the editorial reply, which I believe Stan Lee was writing these at this time, is that it's not fair to knock any other group of magazines while boasting about Marvels. And boy, would this attitude change.
I have no idea what you mean, John.
So finally, in the letters column, Stan asked readers if they'd be okay with closing down the Spider's Web column and lumping the Spidey letters into the Fantastic Four book, leaving 2 more pages for
Why?
storytelling.
What's the point?
What?
Yeah, well, they did not very many magazines had letters columns at this time, especially the anthology books. They didn't have letters columns, and so they would put letters for other magazines in the Fantastic Four book, and they were like, do you want us to do the same for Spidey? Give you 2 more pages for story and take all these letters and dump them in with Fantastic Four.
Did they really do that for other books? Because I did not know that.
Not as much. Most of the Fantastic Four letters column is Fantastic Four letters, but you will have stuff about the Avengers and the X-Men before they had their own letters columns, and the other books that didn't have letters columns. So yeah, there were a lot of other books' letters got printed in the Fantastic Four. There are ads for the Avengers #2 where they go against the Space Phantom and the Hulk leaves the team at the end, and the X-Men &2 against the Vanisher and a darling pet monkey.
Oh, squirrel monkey.
That pet monkey needs to get his own book.
Didn't they do that last year?
Decide more, the Vanisher or a monkey.
So, cameo time. On the same day as this issue came out, Strange Tales number 115 hit the stands. This issue was better known in Marvel history as the issue to finally tell Doctor Strange's origin story, but this book also had a Torch Sandman fight that cameoed Spider-Man and showed his face on the cover. Sandman escapes from prison and the Torch goes after him, but the Sandman only wants to fight Spider-Man. So the Torch actually masquerades as Spider-Man, and the readers don't realize it's a fake out until Sandman knocks him off a tower. Instead of webbing to safety, he bursts into flame as the Torch. The actual Spider-Man finally makes a brief appearance in the final panel. The police are carrying away Sandman, and one says, "I'm betting that he won't want to escape again." Not when he knows the Human Torch will be waiting. And Spider-Man's looking on in the distance, thinking to himself, to say nothing of Spider-Man, I'm glad that flaming freak didn't get clobbered by Sandman, but I don't like the idea of him cutting in on my capers. Sooner or later, this town will be too small for the Torch and me.
Actually, that Untold Tale story where he goes out with Betty and fights the Sandman, it continues from that because the Sandman escapes from his confrontation with the Human Torch. He gets out of, you have the cops, those cops, they open the back of the truck and the Sandman's gone.
Well, yeah, they're just walking away with him. I think there's something in the story that's keeping him from changing right then. But yeah, they're walking away with a man who can turn into sand.
Which was another cool thing about Kurt Busiek, because he was, pulling in things from the other series that were going on at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So
this is the first hint of Sandman becoming less of a Spider-Man villain. He's not gone from Spider-Man yet, but this is the first time he's ventured out in other areas, because the vast majority of Sandman stories, at least for the next 20 years after this point, are not Spider-Man stories.
He joins the Frightful Four for a while.
Yes. I hate that costume. But I've said that before.
Oh, God.
But we are going to see him again for a big 3-parter in this series pretty soon.
This town's not big enough for the two of you. Dude, there's like 1 million heroes in New York. Okay. When do you get up to the 90s?
Not to mention your big sister and her stretchy husband. So, Amazing Spider-Man #8 was released October 8th, 1963, with a cover date of January. This is 1 week after my dad's birthday. He turned 9 this year. And Donovan's going to tell us about this book.
Oh boy. Intro. Terrible threat of the living brain. How would you like to see Pete Parker fight Flash Thompson? See Spider-Man fight a non-human menace? See an intense tale of sheer fantasy so real it feels it's happening to you? You'd like it? Okay, you got it. Let's start reading. So,
don't miss our extra added attraction. Spider-Man tackles the Human Torch, because Human Torch, it's pretty good that he's getting a guest spot in this book. He's never appeared in this book before.
And never will again. So, It's a one-time treat. Midtown High sophomore classes guessing at it's at their class, right? Yeah, they're bringing in this robot that this.
It says senior science class. Sorry, I don't mean to block you there, but
Well, I actually have a theory on Peter Parker's age, but I'll get to that after this one. Anyway, basically they're here to see that this modern miracle of science that this living brain robot can detect things and calculate things just as fast as a human can, or possibly even faster. While they're marveling at it, Flash and Peter get into a bickering contest as they typically do, and Flash kind of backslaps him across the head, and Peter's glasses fall. Peter and Flash are squabbling more. Peter's like, I've had it with this guy. I've had it with him messing with me. He's gonna get what's coming to him. I never need those classes anyway. Which is an explanation that Peter's never really needed glasses. Just that you figure that Aunt May and Uncle May gave him glasses just because. Whereas it's kind of been retconned later on that he needed glasses, but his spider power strengthened his eye muscles. But whatever.
Nice.
The living brain robot is being taught as being super perceptive. So they asked one of the students, who was volunteered by Flash to be Peter, or actually volunteered by Peter to be Peter, to help figure out a question. And they said, well, kids, what questions should we ask the living brain? And they're like, who is Spider-Man? What's his real identity? So, and Peter's like, oh crap, if he finds this out, then I'm screwed. They'll know who I am. Meanwhile, two thugs who, look like the nicest men ever, they don't look like bad guys whatsoever, say, did you hear him call the brain he? Like he was a real person? It's smarter than any real person. I can figure out horse race winners, elections, anything. We get rich if we owned it. So, those are the last time you'll see those guys. Spoilers, not.
I like how computers can come up with anything. Like, just
I like how the children know, like, all these details about Spider-Man. Like, what are some details you know about Spider-Man? He's 5 feet 10 inches tall, 160 pounds. And I'm like, wait, what? Have they even seen him up close?
Yeah, no, right?
I guess it didn't.
and he has the dreamiest eyes ever.
The big white lenses that you can't see out of, the mirrors that look back at you.
Or I think that's what Liz said. Hold on.
He's the most wonderful, heroic, glamorous man in the whole world. Holding a picture of Gilly. If you ask me, he's in right nut. Peter like
the
is
Hills area a lot. Good job with that spider sense, Peter.
Peter's he's kind of depressed now. It's like there's no way I can get out of this. So he feeds it the information somehow, and once the information is printed out, it's printed out in numeric codes, binary code. So he's like, well, Peter, Parker, it's up to you to translate this. And Flash is like, give me a lame brain, I can translate it. This is too valuable for you to decode it. And Parker's like, you can't even translate your own name if someone didn't help you. So they start, squabbling back and forth like a couple of little boys. And then Professor Moore's like, break up you two right now. I've had my eye on you two for a while now. If you both are such enemies, I suggest you settle it in a feud. Once and for all. Here's a couple of guns. Pistols at dawn, gentlemen. Well, actually, he says that they fight in the gyms.
Yeah, this would never happen in a school.
I know. There's never been a point where
back then, but not now.
There's never been a point where I've read this where I didn't call BS on that teacher.
And
he's just like, dude, don't fight in my class.
And the computer check in me has to point out, Donovan, not that, I'm saying you're wrong or anything, but that's not binary code on the strip. It might be hexadecimal because it has letters in it, but it's not binary.
I don't know. So
sorry, just throwing that out.
You got to think that Mr. Warren's been seeing Peter and Flash fighting each other day after day for classes for all these months, so he's probably just like, you know what, just get it over with. He's probably tired of this shiz.
And so after class, Peter and Flash are getting ready for their fight, which includes boxing gloves and a ring. I guess that's how they did in the 60s.
Oh, and he's given himself some Spider-Man art on his skin there.
Peter's got no nipples.
Actually, nobody has nipples here.
On page 6, look at his chest. It's like a Ken doll chest. There's
I wonder if they weren't allowed to draw nipples because nobody has nipples.
I don't think there were. There was a Batman comic where Neil Adams drew nipples on Batman, and the editors were shocked.
Maybe human males didn't have nipples back then. Maybe it's evolved since then.
Maybe you're right.
We should ask someone that was alive in the 60s.
Like our parents?
Let's ask Stan Lee.
Email Stan Lee. Ask him about nipples.
Ask your dad to take off his shirt, see if he had nipples.
This conversation is ending right now.
Okay, so the fight begins.
When we get to the point in the podcast where we are asking our parents to remove articles of clothing, the podcast is over.
Okay, Donovan, tell the story.
The fight begins with everybody cheering on Flash and nobody behind Peter because they think, oh, Flash is going to take him easily. Let's watch him fight him easily. Peter, on the other hand, said, I can take this guy out without even trying, but I don't want to totally destroy him, so I'm going to put the slightest blow on my punch. And despite this, he clears Flash through the ropes into the crowd. And they're like, what the heck happened? And Peter's like, geez, I tried not to hit him so hard, but I couldn't help it. I'm just too powerful. And everybody's like, oh, it must have been a trick. There's no way that Peter Parker can blah, blah, blah. So while this is happening, the two thugs from the beginning, I promised that you wouldn't see again. Well, you see them again. They ended up knocking out the professor and stealing the brain. But they messed with it. They short-circuited it, trying to lift it out there, and it starts going berserk. So it starts swinging its arms like a couple of bullets. And going berserk around the lab. Meanwhile, back at the fight, Peter's bobbing and weaving and ducking and diving, and he's decided to end this. He says, "Okay, here it comes, Flash. Now smile. I want to remember you as you look right now." And at the sounds of the brain going crazy, Flash looks away right as Peter knocks him out. And everybody's like, boo! It hit him when his head was turned. It was a foe. So Peter's like, well, that sucks. He hears the cries and he turns to Spider-Man and runs into the living brain, who is chasing into the crowd. Spider-Man helps to clear the crowd, and then there's several pages of them basically running and fighting until he outmaneuvers him and manages to switch off the switches to make the thing complacent now. Flash later wakes up from being unconscious and manages to change into clothes right as the two thugs who tried to steal in the first place run into him. They knock themselves out stupidly. Everyone's like, wow, Flash caught the two robbers. And Peter's like, well, this is easy. Say, Flash, you're the only one who wasn't with us when Spider-Man was fighting the living brain. You're the one who didn't want his secret identity exposed in front of everyone. You must be Spider-Man. You're like, knock it off, Bookworm. You're imagining things. I'm not Spider-Man. And then everyone's like, hey, Flash must be Spider-Man. And Peter's like, well, this ends up well for me. I'll just say I forgot about this joke during all the excitement. Oh, this has been a mighty pleasant day.
There was a HypnoCoin ad, which I was going to interrupt you, but you breezed over the fighting so quickly. Thank you, by the way, for doing that, because I find this fight to be really, really boring.
Yeah, honestly, I did that because I skipped most of it when I was reading.
The Living Brain fight, God.
Living Brain is one of the few Ditko villains who doesn't really come back that much. I mean, he's come back. I mean, because everybody comes back, but
I do have Peter Parker Spider-Man. One of the issues in the year 2000 had him.
Oh, he came back in the 80s in a few issues of Web where Peter actually substitutes at Midtown High for the first time.
Really?
It was a two-parter, and the Living Brain came back.
Okay, because the index said that the Peter Parker Spider-Man was the next one, so I guess somebody missed their web.
And in fact, the cover was a mirror image of this.
Of the splash page?
No, of the cover.
The Tribute to Teenagers cover was mirrored on a web of?
Yeah, it was very early in Web of Spider-Man. Not long after Peter and Mary Jane got married was issue 35. The dramatic return of one of Spider-Man's deadliest supervillains.
They love lying in Marvel, don't they?
Liar!
I call shenanigans. So the punch of Flash going over the ropes. And I was all surprised at how powerful that was. I just read in Amazing Spider-Man Family number 3, which came out in December of 2008. There is a story by J.M. DeMatteis called The Punch. And
I have that issue. I know what you're about.
That was a pretty good story where Spider-Man first punches a guy and almost kills him. And I just would have to, it was a good story, but it doesn't really jive with this continuity here, because this is obviously the first time Peter realizes just how strong his punches are.
You don't say. Well, he was really mad at this time. I really, really, really want to punch this guy. It must have felt so satisfying to see him fly across the ropes.
And I have to say that he's supposed to have super fast instincts and reflexes, so if there's enough time between Flash turning his head and Parker connecting that everyone else sees it, then that should be enough time for Spider-Man to react.
Do not look at the man behind the green hood.
Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just keep going.
Just keep dancing.
But yeah, this is probably my least favorite story of the entire first 20 issues of the book.
A rampant robot's not very interesting.
No, Superman can fight robots, and that can be fun. Spider-Man fighting robots, I mean...
Well, make it an interesting robot at the very least.
It's one of the worst-looking robots ever.
If you're an adolescent or a kid reading this, and you can sympathize with the nerd getting picked up by the bully, and it's the issue that highlights, see, Peter Parker and Flash Thompson fight, and they start fighting, and then a stupid-looking robot comes out. Which you honestly want to see more? The superhero and his student identity taking on the bully when you can fully take him on for the first time, or a robot just running around? Which honestly
We have-
would you rather see?
We have another case here of like Flash and Peter about to kick each other's butt with Liz standing between them with her debutante costume, holding her hands up like, I do declare. She does that like almost all the time.
I like it at page 7 at the bottom. She's like covering her eyes. She doesn't want to see the fight.
Oh, but I love them both. Well, I don't think she loves Peter at this point, but
No.
Untold Tales elaborates on Peter losing his glasses because Aunt May was, of course, saying that he needed to get them replaced, and he's like, I don't need them, so he had to go to an eye doctor to get his second opinion. So he
Peter
goes
Palmer?
he goes to an eye doctor, and he calls himself Peter Palmer because he's afraid that the eye doctor might see that he has like spider eyes or something.
Wow.
So
That's
and
pretty cool. Toss
and
back.
Liz makes an innocent comment to the rest of the gang that Peter kind of looks cute without his glasses now. So that like sets up the impetus for her having a crush on him around issue 12. Although, she was digging him with his, chest off, even though there was no nipples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like both Peter and Flash are pretty jacked in this issue. I love on page 5 when the kid said, "Well, don't worry, Stream Bean. Peter has like a 6-pack and like huge biceps and deltoids. Like, are these kids so like don't like him that they'll refuse how muscular he is? I mean, seriously."
Because he's pretty fit.
Parker.
He's not so puny.
He and Flash are almost the same. Like, Flash is a smidge thicker than he is, but Peter is still like any two-faced idiot could tell that he's in really good shape. And like, oh, he's gonna get clobbered. Like you really want these kids to like kind of like have a building fall on them because they're so ridiculously annoying. But that's just me.
Zach, did you have anything on this issue?
I don't get why a parent would name their child Flash.
His name's
Well,
Eugene.
Yeah, Flash is.
But we don't know that yet. I mean, that hasn't been revealed yet in the series. It comes out, I guess, a lot later because I'm in 1981 and still haven't gotten that.
This is the part of the show we're going to retcon time. Originally, there was a story that said Flash was named Flash because he was so fast in the football field. But in Spectacular Spider-Man, the cartoon, it said that he was Flash because he would never wear pants when he was a little boy. But another reason he was named Flash because he was quick in bed. It goes back and forth.
In bed, more like in backseat of car.
Yeah. So the second story is titled "Spider-Man Makes an Ass of Himself and Doesn't Understand Why That Upsets People." Can you talk about that, Don?
Yeah, Lettered by Steve Rosen. That was his title. Spider-Man tackles the torch. Basically, Spider-Man, feels like a douche. So he tracks down Torch as he pulls up in his new Stingray.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, he borrowed from Sean Connery that day.
Last week he was driving an XK Jag, and now this.
Oh, Torch hadn't found him first. Torch shows off. Spider-Man shows off because he starts making web objects with his webbing. Everybody's like, Spider-Man, who about him? And it's really a lot like the nerd trying to be cool. So he's kind of coming off as a jerk to the crowd, and everyone's like, he's a loser. So he and Torch get in the pissing contest, and basically they fight with their webbing and their flame attacks. Eventually, is it a beach they land on? Because the Spider-Man kind of gets him and sees reach out his hand. Can I give you a hand, son? Because we didn't really want to talk to you for the last 10 times we've encountered. But now let's have a chat. So Spider-Man, realizing how many times those guys have screwed him over in the past 10 hours of the podcast, starts fighting with them all over again like he did in issue 1. It's actually Sue Storm who gets the better of him because she, I think she takes, is it a rope or just his own webbing?
I think she just grabs his way. He has a big old web wings, and she just grabs him.
Yeah, she grabs him and then kind of kneels over him in that, seductive teacher style and says, "You're entirely too clever and adorable to be fighting with us. I'll bet you're as handsome as you are muscular under that mask." "Oh, cut it out, Susie. I just stayed." So Spider-Man's like, to hell with all of 3 of you except for Sue. She's awesome. So
This is back whenever Sue was still flirting with every guy, Reed, Namor, Spider-Man. Doesn't matter.
What do you mean back? Okay,
Oh.
Well, in the Fantastic Four that I've read, which is up through issue 75, she stopped doing that once she and Reed actually got engaged and started working towards getting married.
She has her mall doll type of haircut now.
Untold Tales, I guess the theme of last episode was John Bird. The theme of this episode is Untold Tales. They did a continuation of this where it's more Johnny and Peter trying to one-up each other. So he decides to make Johnny angry. He's going to ask Sue out, remembering that whole thing where he webbed the heart for her. And Sue's mad at Reed for, being all sciencey and not being all, hey, your hair looks pretty today. So she accepts. And Peter's thinking, oh, crap, I didn't think this through, but okay, I'll go on a date with her. So Johnny, to get revenge on Spider-Man because he can't stand the fact that Sue and Spider-Man are going out on a date, and they go out to a pizza parlor, and Peter webs he webs a bow tie to himself. which like becomes half melted over the course of the day. Johnny goes to the sea and he puts a bunch of flames in there, and Namor wakes up. He's like, "Who, Dad, disturbs me?" It's like, "Quick, Sue! She's been kidnapped by Spider-Man. You have to do something." So it becomes this whole like superhero misunderstanding mix-up fight. It's Untold Tales Annual 1, and it is freaking hilarious.
I think that's the one that's drawn by Mike Allred.
It might be.
He did the X-Force, X-Statics. He's done several creator-owned things. I like his art. It's very stylistic.
Very pop art-esque.
I would recommend picking it up.
So the Fantastic Four here, and some of Donovan's comments about the Fantastic Four remind me of early Legion stories. Have y'all ever read any of the first Silver Age Legion stories?
Well, Legion are like X-Men. They're so convoluted. I really can't get into.
Okay, the early Legion, the first several appearances that they do, they're not bad guys. Of course, they're superhero teenagers and they want to be friends with Superboy and Supergirl.
But they haze them.
They haze them, and it's not just the first story where they try to recruit Superboy and throw all these pranks on him. Several stories are them doing pranks and mischief on Superboy and Supergirl. And it's just like, why the hell are you interfering with my life and sending me on all these crazy stunts? Because I don't like you. But no, of course, they're all just good friends and take it all in kind and everything. But it reminds me of that here.
Well, I just want to like kind of point out to the listeners because I know my fair share of basics for the Fantastic Four, but I am not, and I have read a couple of F4 stories, but actually that was a while ago. I'm not huge on like Fantastic Four, just like kind of a little more than the basics. They seriously are like just these stuck up celebrity superheroes. I mean, because I know they're the golden boys of the Marvel universe. Like everybody loves them, but they seem like such prima donnas in like every single issue that they're referenced in. Oh, should we help them? I don't want to help them. Okay, let's help them. Why do I gotta help them? Here, Spider-Man, let's help you. I mean, no.
Because that's who they are from Spider-Man's point of view.
I mean, but it's not like, yeah, but I don't think Stan chose, this is the third person perspective, not first person perspective, so. It just makes you want to kill yourself, just hearing Ben bitch about everything left and right when it's not about him. I don't know. I know it reads about, damn it, woman, leave me to my science, but it's like, can't they like, I don't know, play ball for one issue? They have to like, Human Torch, save the world. I'm too busy combing my hair and driving my. And that leads me to the next question. Like in the very first issue, like the Strange Tales issue, did Sue and Johnny have a separate house from the Baxter Building?
Yeah, they used to live in Glenville. And they'd stay at the Baxter Building sometimes. Glenville was the town where everyone was humoring the Human Torch by pretending that he didn't have a secret identity.
I really wanted to forget about that an hour ago. And I won't.
Dude, it's hilarious. It's like, oh, we all knew you had a secret identity. We're just being polite.
Okay, so personally, I think that Spider-Man kind of had it coming here. Like, he just throws off the party for no reason except for this town's not big enough for the two of us.
He did.
No, like I said, Spider-Man's just a jerk. He's like, oh, the Human Torch is having a good time. Well, we can't have any of that.
Now, for some reason...
Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I don't know if any of you bought the 14 issues of the official Index of the Marvel Universe.
I got various ones.
Okay, I bought the whole set as it was coming out, and it basically gives an entire chronology of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the X-Men from day one till the end of 2009. Very, very cool. A few errors here and there, but for the most part, it's really, really awesome. For some reason, though, and this is one of the places where I kind of call, what are you talking about on it, they put this backup story after the Beatles story of number 21.
That's actually kind of funny considering what happens in the Beatles story.
Well, because Spider-Man doesn't know who Doris Evans is. That's why. I remember that. That was explained.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's the continuity reason.
Because he doesn't recognize Doris Evans when he meets her, but he knows who she is here.
Okay.
Doris Evans.
To me, that could be totally explained by the passage of time.
Yeah, but someone that worked at Marvel decided nah.
Okay. Well, at least that's a reason. Because I was thinking, why would you put this after the other story that came out 2 years later, or at least a year and a half later? But that's a reason, so that's enough for me. That's fine.
Is that a big giant web bat?
Yeah, that's a big giant.
I'm afraid so.
Made of ice webs.
And all of
do
a sudden,
like
it
how,
started snowing.
I do like how he punches through it and like a bunch of web tendrils kind of pop out. That's kind of
Oh,
cool.
I'm not sure if this was done before now, but he sings the man on the flying trapeze, Peter, when he's flying. He does this a lot, particularly in the Lee Ditko run.
Yes.
And I think that this is the first time he sings it, unless I missed it in one of the other issues that we did.
Floats through the
No.
air. Okay, so the letters page here took us up through the annuals and the Dr. Doom story. Buddy Saunders likened the Torch Spidey fight of the Strange Tales annual to the Torch Namor fights of old. And to me, there's no contest between those two. I don't know where he was getting his ideas, but I guess Torch fighting somebody made him think of it. Kevin R. McDonald tells them they use radiation too much, and they're like, we had to have some sort of plot device.
It's very true.
It's the 60s. It's radiation's this scary thing that can blow up cities, but also turn you green or turn you into sand, or
Right.
it doesn't matter. It's like kryptonite on Smallville. It
Does whatever you want it to.
Yeah.
There had been a letter a few issues back, I don't think I mentioned it, suggesting that they take the word amazing out of the title because it was kind of corny. But they do announce here that reader response favored leaving it in, so Spider-Man will always stay amazing, just like his amazing fantasy roots.
No,
And there is a promise next issue, so we have a little bit of a cliffhanger here. Next issue to reveal whether the readers voted to keep the letters column or ditch it. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
And you'll be on.
Well, how are you going to announce it unless there's a letters column to announce it? So
The very last page, the ad, that dude looks like a rapist.
I wish I had that page, but sadly I don't.
The
the
Dynaflex method?
The hypnotizing guy.
The hypnotizing guy. Yeah.
Oh my
Because he has
gosh.
Donovan, there's this woman with the whole floating in the air with a blanket dangling over her thing, but it looks like she's wearing nothing but that blanket. And then there's little guy's head like down and to the right looking up at her, and from the angle he could be looking up at the blanket at her. And yeah, it's pretty terrible.
See, this is what Frederick Wortham was going on and on about with these pictures. I mean, we talk about Spider-Man playing Leapfrog with J. Jonah Jameson. You have, monkeys being sold, hypno coins, rapists, magic men,
And Jimi Hendrix music, which is awesome.
Oh, we don't have Jimi Hendrix yet because we don't even have the Beatles yet, do we?
Well, the Beatles are. Hold on. What date is this?
63.
Yeah, well, the Beatles were around in '63, but they just hadn't hit America pretty big
Okay,
yet.
this is October 1963, so I guess they're going on in the UK.
By '63, they had Ringo and they had recorded their early stuff already.
Okay.
Pete's gone.
For those of you who don't know, Josh Bertoni does have a Beatles podcast.
I just came back from Beatles Cruise Fool. It was awesome.
Amazing Spider-Man. We have 8 issues down, 619 to go.
Unless they release more in the interim.
Yeah. So you can reach us by email at amazingspidermanclassics@gmail.com. This show, Amazing Spider-Man Classics, is hosted at Libsyn. The web address is amazingspiderman.libsyn.com. You can also go on the facebook.com and search for Amazing Spider-Man Classics. There is a group page there. Feel free to join that and get notifications when episodes go up. And
Next
Thank you
issue,
for the comments.
yes, please continue to write in. We love the feedback.
a preview of what's to come. You cannot beat him. He's Electro. Boogie woogie woogie. Peter
the
Parker
bullet again?
does. Peter Parker does something morally ambiguous with photos and Electro. And we got the Enforcers. They got cowboys with big ass ropes. You're not going to want to miss that. Oh, and some guys coming back with a bunch of arms.
Dun dun dun.
Betty Brant's about to become an only child.
Dun, dun, dun. Wait, I thought she was. Wait, she has a brother? Oh, wait, he's dead. Spoiler.
Spoiler.
Let's introduce this character to kill him, but we'll talk about that later. Okay.
All
Well,
that and
Josh,
Spider-Man.
Don,
Oh.
and Zach, thank you all very much for being on tonight, and we will say good night. Thank you for listening to Amazing Spider-Man Classics.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look overhead. Hey there goes the Spider-Man. in the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, wealth and fame, he's ignored, action is his reward to him. Life is a great big bang-up, wherever there's a hang-up, you'll find the Spider-Man.
Well, he didn't really need his nipples. I mean, he's not going to use them for anything.
Y'all were really looking for those nipples.
Even-
huh?
We need to stop talking about nipples.
Even Jesus had no use for his nipples. He couldn't get them to work.
Nipples. Well, okay, that's enough.
You
Well,
and
I
I
was gonna say-
you and I are so done professionally.
You're a good guy.
Am I seriously offending? I mean, seriously? Am I?
No.
Okay, good.
I don't even understand the reference.
Jesus not with what? What?
I don't get Jesus not using his nipples.
Well, I mean, with all of his divine powers, he couldn't get his nipples to work.
This is so cut.
This is so bad. Yeah.
What would
Oh my
they
God.
work
I mean, you
to
think
do?
he could have like made lasers come out of them when he was on the cross or something, but no.
Oh,
What?
the Catholic in me wants to say something, but
Oh my God! I'm glad I'm a person who's not easily offended.
the college kid in me just does not care.
We are so done professionally.